In this video, I will talk about my story of how I got into Pokemon. The year is 2009. I watched my brother play Pokemon Platinum, Pokemon Heart Gold, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. One day, I played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky on his DS. That would be the first Pokemon game that I played by myself. I used to have a physical copy of the game, but my brother sold the game to his friend a long time ago. My brother would also borrow the GBA Pokemon games from his friends, like Pokemon Emerald, Leaf Green, and Fire Red. He'd transfer the Pokemon caught from these games over to Heart Gold to Pow Park before returning the game. There were days where I would bring the DS to school to play Pokemon with my classmates during lunch break. It was fun times. After primary, I kind of fell off Pokemon. Generation 5 Pokemon Black and White were being released, and during their launch, they were almost universally hated. I recall there was so much controversy online, but what I remember most was that it wasn't cool to like Pokemon then. During the summer holidays one year, I would emulate games like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Raid Rescue Team, Pokemon Emerald, Pokemon Fire Red, Pokemon Soul Silver, and Pokemon Black. As a kid, the only way I could play video games outside of my parents buying them were if the games were free or through piracy. In 2016, Pokemon Go had become a whole global sensation. Everyone was aware of it or was playing it. It even became a meme during the election. Pokemon had such a massive resurgence in the public consciousness. Fast forward to 2019, I played Pokemon Go to kill time, but eventually I craved the complexity of a mainline Pokemon game. I spent time binge playing all the Pokemon releases that I hadn't kept up with. Using Desmusme, I emulated Pokemon Black and Pokemon Black 2. Using Citra 3DS emulator, I played X, Alpha Sapphire, Moon, and Ultra Sun. I even caught up with the rest of the Mystery Dungeon installments, Gates to Infinity and Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon. Hooray for piracy! Sword and Shield was going to be released in November 2019. Then the bombshell at E3 called Dexit happened, where they started removing Pokemon from the games and not programming all of them in. All the vitriol, the outrage, and the controversy surrounding the game. I was keeping up with all the updates on how Game Freak lied and checking out the data mines and the leaks as they were coming out. I'm not going to buy Sword and Shield because I don't like the precedent Dexit set or the direction that the Pokemon franchise had been going in during its 3DS era. Also helped that I didn't have a Switch at the time. The game was released. I saw the news where they bragged about getting 6 million sales for Sword and Shield in the first week. Best-selling game in the Pokemon franchise in over 20 years. Great job on the boycott. I did my part, but it didn't seem to make a dent. If anything, controversy sells. All the posters about the reused models, the high-quality animations and removed features were inadvertently advertising and marketing the game. The numbers don't lie. I began feeling disillusioned with the Pokemon franchise in its 3D era. I tried to go back to the old games, trying to reclaim the wonder and carefreeness of my childhood. In 2020, I learned just how expensive these old Pokemon games had gotten. Looking up the second-hand market, what the heck happened to these prices? The Pokemon GBA and DS games just shot way up during the pandemic. These games were like 70 New Zealand dollars retail. Now people were asking for double, triple, quadruple, what the f***? Not even free shipping? Oh, at least this one has free shipping going for it. If you're buying the physical copy of these games at these extortionist prices, you can't be buying it to play, you're buying it for the collector's value. The only compelling reason you would purchase second-hand Pokemon games at outrageous prices is so that you can add it to your collection and say that you have all the Pokemon games. These games aren't rare, they're among the best-selling GBA and DS games. All my friends in primary school had a copy. I guess one thing I learned from it was to take care of your stuff. Keep it in good condition, don't throw out the packaging or manuals. You can charge a premium for having things complete in box. In 2021, I ended up getting a Switch Lite. I wanted to try Pokemon Sword 2 years later when the hype had died down, but I didn't want to contribute to its sales numbers. If you buy the game, you don't get to complain because you've already given the developers financial approval. If you don't play the game, well, you can't form your own opinion and thoughts on it. I don't want to be part of the problem. I wanted to eat my cake and have it too. Hence, I went to the marketplace and got Pokemon Sword second-hand for cheap. Pokemon Sword and Shield in one word, mediocre, 5 out of 10. Maybe I should have tried harder to get a Switch emulator working on my computer. Having a Switch now, I thought I can't just get the Switch to play only one game, so I ended up buying Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Both of those Switch games are great, refreshing and fun. They present a bold new direction that pushed the boundaries of their franchise, and then you compare it to what Pokemon was putting out. Super Mario Odyssey, I love the idea of body possession, taking over another creature's body and using their unique gimmicks. It's gorgeous! Adventure, exploration and freedom, everything Pokemon Sword and Shield lacked, is put at the forefront. The transition between pixel art and 3D is so fluid and magical. Super Mario Odyssey was a solid 8 out of 10 game for me. Breath of the Wild has an amazing and advanced physics engine that allows for all sorts of possibilities. The Bokoblins are so ugly and cute. Just the red ones anyways. Oh my god, they're boogie dancing. I'm not constantly being interrupted and handheld by the game. Playing Pokemon Sword and then Breath of the Wild back to back gave me whiplash. I'd give Breath of the Wild a 9 out of 10 score. The one thing I didn't enjoy was collecting all 900 Koroks. All these other game developers were putting their best foot forward. Why couldn't Pokemon do the same? I saw this comment here. Personally, I think the series started getting half-assed around the transition to 3DS, although I am looking forward to BDSP and Legends Arceus. In one sentence, you managed to both describe the problem and show why the problem still exists. 2022 came. Everyone was expecting Gen 4 remakes, and they were announced, much to everyone's chagrin. It's a generation I grew up with. They can't butcher that. It's not like Generation 4 needed a remake anyways. They advertised it as faithful, so they won't change anything, right? That means I can customize my secret base like the original games, right? God. They really went for a deliberately bastardized version of the game, huh? BDSP might be better than the original Diamond and Pearl, but it's still inferior to Platinum, the definitive and superior game to experience Generation 4. BDSP was shipped incomplete. People needed to download a 2.4GB day 1 patch on release. I don't blame ILCA. They did their best while having their hands tied. I just expected more than the bare minimum for a Pokemon remake. Pokemon Legends Arceus seemed to show some semblance of hope for the franchise. Pokemon's trying to copy Breath of the Wild. I enjoyed Legends Arceus, but it is overhyped. Being a novel concept for Pokemon should not excuse Legends Arceus from criticism. I like this description of it. It's a good game made badly. If you don't enjoy the catching aspect and heavy repetitiveness, you're not going to like Legends Arceus. The graphics aren't good, let's not kid ourselves, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the new Pokemon designs like Origin Dialga, Origin Palkia and Enamorus. Surprisingly though, Legends Arceus demonstrated a positive change in Game Freak's design philosophy. The sense of going on your own adventure. Something that was missing from the 3DS Pokemon games was a feeling of experiencing your own Pokemon adventure. When I played through the story of Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield and even Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, these games had this the player design philosophy in a narrative. The game makes you feel like a side character, even though you're the main protagonist. Being forced to watch a different person's story is not fun. You, the main protagonist, are there to watch someone else experience a Pokemon adventure. You really get the sense of contempt towards the player. Playing through Sun and Moon, I kept thinking, they don't play their own games. The people at Game Freak should play their own games, see if they enjoy playing as a side character and being forced to watch an NPC play the game. It didn't feel like my Pokemon journey. The story isn't about you, it's not about your Pokemon journey, it's the NPCs. Pokemon Sun and Moon is a cutscene simulator where you aren't even the main character. In the story of Sun and Moon, Lily is a main character while you are sidelined to watch. As Jerium Red said, it's Lily's mother that's a villain, it's Lily shouting at her mother that's a climax of the story, it's Lily posing with the Sun or Moon legendary in a final photo of the credits. Lily is a main character in Sun and Moon. Leon from Sword and Shield, what's that? Our Dynamax Pokemon suddenly went out of control? Off back to your gym challenge, I'll handle it and have all the fun instead of you. The story just seems to happen around the player, not having any meaningful impact for the most part. By the time the player arrives, the action is already over. It wasn't like this in the old Pokemon games. Where's that sense of adventure, exploration, and freedom? I don't want to live a Pokemon adventure vicariously through someone else. I want to experience it for myself. That's why I detest the narrative for Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and Super Mystery Dungeon. From the beginning, Pokemon games have been about the players and their personal journey. You pick your team and go on your adventure out in the world. It seems Game Freak realized this problem with their design philosophy in their games. Legends Arceus. When you complete the Pokédex, Professor Laventon mentions that his scientific curiosity is positively rolling, but this isn't his tale of adventure, it's yours. This is for you and you alone to find out. Arvin from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You know the book that the professor asked me to bring? I think it's got something to do with this place, or more like everything to do with this place. But I'm not the one she expects to fix whatever all this is. You are. They return the power back to the player character. They make the actual main character of the game the main character of the story. This is a visible and good change in the design philosophy of Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. The end photo for Sun and Moon doesn't even include the player, it's just Lily and the Legendary, just cut the player out entirely. Compare this to Scarlet and Violet, the end photo. You are in the photo with your friends, as it should be, both for the main game and the DLC. They even introduced the character Karen in the Pokemon Scarlet Violet DLC. Karen is like meta commentary about not being the main character in a game, instead being a side character in someone else's story. Karen wants a Pokemon Ogerpon for himself. He's been obsessing over and idolizing the Pokemon for a long time. Spoilers for the Scarlet Violet DLC. Long story short, you spend time helping Ogerpon get its precious masters back from the lousy 3 Pokemon, while Karen is doing something else. But when Ogerpon chooses to go with you, Kieran becomes envious, and he battles you for the right to become Ogerpon's trainer. His sister Carmine tells Kieran what he needs to hear. You have to think about her feelings too. Ogerpon wants to go with the player because they helped Ogerpon with something that was very important to her. Kieran goes into his Edgelord arc in the Indigo Disc DLC. Returning back to Area Zero, Kieran has this really emotional speech about how the player character has everything he's ever wanted, and he doesn't. Even the legendary Pokemon Terrapagos chooses to walk towards the player over Kieran. And of course, Kieran goes ahead and uses a Master Ball to forcefully capture the legendary Pokemon for himself. Tangent about the Master Ball. Using a Master Ball seems so unethical when you think about it. The relationship between a Pokemon and a trainer is a two-way street. You can choose a Pokemon, but they have to choose you as well. When you use a Master Ball, it's a guaranteed capture, but you don't get the Pokemon's consent. Imagine being a Pokemon and seeing a trainer want you, but you don't want them. Then they use a Master Ball on you and you're forced to be with someone you don't like. Trainers should use any Pokeball except the Master Ball. It's more ethical when trainers beat the Pokemon into submission until they're too weak. Actually, that sounds really wrong. On second thought, let's not bring logic into this. Talking about Scarlet and Violet. I enjoyed Pokemon Scarlet and Violet because similar to the old Pokemon games, it felt like it was my own Pokemon adventure. Keeping in mind I'm biased because I started this YouTube channel with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet gameplay videos. Scarlet and Violet felt uncharacteristically ambitious compared to what came before. Yes, there are problems with these games, but that's a topic for another video. Really underrated feature of Legends Arceus is a first-person view. This feature could totally be developed further. Another really underrated feature of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but it's limited to the Terrarium and the Indigo Disc DLC, is a Synchro Machine, which allows you to control your Pokemon. You basically possess your Pokemon's body, and you can do it with any Pokemon that's available in the game. Memorable Pokemon Rivals, it's a group of friends with the player character done right. The roster of Pokemon designs for Generation 9 are peak. Iron Valiant is a canon fusion between Gardevoir and Glade. Tatsugiri the Nigiri sushi Pokemon, so bloody cute. Chien-Pao is so cool. Chi-Yu is a really good Pokemon design with the jade beads embodying jealousy. Actually, the whole Treasures of Ruin legendary quartet is great. Previous legendary trios or quartets or quintet designs are really just each other, but with a color palette swap and minor changes. These four are all straight up unique animals with a cohesive theme. Ceruledge and Armarouge, instant fan favorite. I could go on. There are clearly still some passionate and creative fans in the devs at Game Freak that are carrying the Pokemon franchise. Which brings us to 2024. In January 2024, a certain game was released, which inevitably drew a lot of comparisons to Pokemon. Yokai Watch, Temtem, Shin Megami Tensei, Monster Hunter Stories, etc. I've never really cared for those as Pokemon alternatives. Cause at the end of the day, what sells me on Pokemon is the designs of the creatures. In comes Palworld with totally not plagiarized Pokemon designs. Their creatures somehow have the quality of a Pokemon design. Now I'm interested. But the more important thing is that Palworld sold extremely well, breaking sales records. I do wonder, if modern Pokemon games weren't so poorly received, I wonder if Palworld would have sold as well as it did. In Palworld, the complete disregard of the Geneva Convention is admirable, and simple things like being able to ride on your own Pokemon and fight alongside them is refreshing. Not long after Nintendo and the Pokemon Company filed a patent lawsuit against Palworld, the Terra leak in October 2024 occurred. Biggest leak in Pokemon history. Apparently, the hacker has information on Generation 10 and Legends Z to A that they haven't released, which I'm surprisingly okay with. What the Pokemon Company is going to do is that they're going to keep tightening ship, stronghold their security and withhold as much information as they can. They already have nothing burger news like Iono streaming for 5 minutes, a 24-hour stream where Galarian Ponyta shows up for a few seconds. Impidimp pops in and out quickly as well, but practically 99% of the stream is empty. Legends Z to A, they don't even show any gameplay footage because any footage they show us is going to be scrutinized to hell and back. Who knew the way to avoid vitriol from the fans is to not show anything? If the higher-ups at Game Freak still think, it doesn't matter if the game is bad, the stupid fanbase and masses will buy it anyway, that's a shameful attitude to have. Do they not have any pride? In 50 years, actually, let's say 15 years. In 15 years' time, I'd like to see the reputation of the Pokemon franchise. You think it's bad now? What if the future games are even worse? How far can the downward spiral go? I want to see if Game Freak would ever prioritize the artistic value of the product rather than the quantity of sales as a benchmark of success. I want to see if Pokemon has a will to shake the very foundation of the video game market with its art. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I am doing everything on this channel. I script my videos, I add subtitles to all my voice videos where applicable, I am doing all the researching, the editing, the animating, the ideation of topics and thumbnails. I am a one-man army. I'm just one person, but I know in my heart, one person is all it takes to make a difference. Thank you for watching.